Hello everyone! Welcome to the Slime channel and to our special stream today. We are starting a new series called Reading Story Streams. This will be our first reading, not really ASMR, but reading stream overall. It'll be a bit different from our normal stream because, I want to keep the experience to be like, you guys can use it as a bedtime story. So you can fall asleep to it. So all of the alarm will be turned off and we won't really be doing much chit-chatting either. But today we're gonna start reading books. Yay! It is my first time reading, books. So it might be a bit nervous for me, but I'll do my best. It's not gonna be a very long stream either because we're just starting, Hello everyone! So we're probably gonna be splitting this book into 2 to 3 parts. We'll start with a shorter one today and maybe a longer one next time. We'll see how it goes. Yay! Our first story of this series is gonna be The Little Prince. And yes, I hope you guys like the new layout as well. Nah. Any headpads? Yeah. Headpads, everyone? Okay, let's start. Hehe. The Little Prince. This is actually my first time reading this novel because I have never really read it myself, but I'm really sure that you guys and me will both like it. Okay, Chapter 1. Once when I was 6 years old, I saw a beautiful picture in a book about the premier forest called True Story. It showed a boa constrictor swallowing an animal. Here's a copy of the drawing. The book stated, boa constrictors swallow their prey whole without chewing it, whereupon they can no longer move and sleep for 6 months digesting it. I then reflect deeply upon the adventure in the jungle and in turn succeeded in making my first drawing with a colorful pencil. My drawing number 1 was like this. I showed my masterpiece to the grown-ups and asked them if my drawing frightened them. They answered, why should anyone be frightened by a hat? My drawing did not represent a hat. It was supposed to be a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. Oh, okay, I'll turn on the music as well. Thank you guys. It was supposed to be a boa constrictor digesting an elephant. So I made another drawing of the inside of the boa constrictor to enable the grown-up to understand. They always need explanations. My drawing number 2 looked like this. The grown-up then advised me to give my drawing of a boa constrictor, whether from the inside or the outside, and devote myself instead to geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar. Thus it was that I gave up a magnificent career as a painter at the age of 6. I have been disappointed by the lack of success of my drawing number 1 and my drawing number 2. Grown-ups never understand anything but themselves, and it is rather tedious for children to have to explain things to them time and again. So I had to choose another job and learn to pilot airplanes. I flew more or less all over the world, and indeed geography had been extremely useful to me. I am able to distinguish between China and Arizona at a glance, and extremely helpful if one gets lost in the night. As a result of which I have been in touch throughout my life with all kinds of serious peoples. I've spent a lot of time with grown-ups. I've seen them at very close quarter, which I am afraid have not greatly enhanced my opinion of them. Whenever I meet one who seems reasonably clear-sighted to me, I show them my drawing number 1, which I have kept as experiment. I wanted to find out whether he or she was truly understanding. But the answer was always, oh, it's a hat. So I gave up mentioning boa constrictor, or premier forest, or stars. I will bring myself down to his and her level and talk about bridges, golf, politics, and neckties. And grown-up would be very pleased to have met such a sensible person. Chapter 2. Thus, I lived alone. was no one I could really talk to, until I had an accident at the Sahara Desert 6 years ago. Something broke down in my engine, and since there was neither a mechanic nor passenger with me, I prepared myself for a difficult but what I hope would be a successful repair. It was a matter of life or death for me. I have scarcely enough water for a week. On the first night, I fell asleep on the sand, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. I was far more isolated than a shipwrecked sailor on a raft in the middle of the ocean. So you can imagine my surprise at sunrise when an odd little voice waked me up. It said, "Please, draw me a sheep." What? "Draw me a sheep." I jumped up, completely thunderstruck. I rubbed my eyes, blinked hard, and looked carefully around me, and I discovered an extraordinary little boy watching me gravely. He's the best portrait I was able to draw of him later, but of course, my drawing is not half as charming as this model. It is not my fault. I've been discouraged by growing up in my career as a painter when I was 6 years old, and I haven't learned to draw anything with the exception of bows from the outside and bows from the inside. I therefore stared in total astonishment at this sudden apparition. Do not forget that I was 1,000 miles away from an inhabited region. But my little cap did not seem to be either lost or dead tired or dying of hunger, thirst, or fear. He did not look like a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any inhabited regions. When I finally managed to speak, I said to him, "But what are you doing here?" Whereupon he repeated softly and gravely, "Please draw me a sheep." When the mystery is too overpowering, one dare not disobey. Absurd as it seemed to me 1,000 miles from any human habitation and in danger of death, I took a sheet of paper and my fountain pen out of my pocket. But I suddenly remembered that my studies had been concentrated on geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar, so I told the little cap, a little crossly, that I did not know how to draw, but replied, "It doesn't matter. Draw me a sheep." Since I had never drawn a sheep, I drew for him one of the 2 pictures I had drawn before. That of a boa constrictor from the outside, and I was stunned to hear the little fella saying, No, I don't want an elephant instead of a boy. A boa constrictor is a very dangerous creature, and an elephant is a very cumbersome. Everything is very small where I live. I need a sheep. Draw me a sheep." So I drew. He looked at it carefully and said, "No, this one's already very sick. Draw me another one." And I drew. And my little friend said gently and indignantly, "Don't you see that this is not a sheep? It's a ram. We have horns." Once again, I made another drawing, but it was rejected too, like the previous one. This one's too old. I want a sheep that will live for a long time. My patience had run out by then, as I was in a hurry to start dismantling my engines as soon as possible. So I scribbled this drawing, and explained, "That is only the box. The sheep you asked for is inside." But I was very surprised to see that the face of my young judge lighting up. "This is exactly the way I wanted it. Do you think the sheep would need a lot of grass?" "Why?" "Because where I live, everything is so small." "There should be enough grass for him. I have given him a very small sheep." He bent his head over the drawing. "Not so small that..." Look! He had gone to sleep. And that is how I meet the little prince. Chapter 3. It took me a long time to find where he came from. The little prince who asked me so many questions never seemed to hear mine. It is thanks to the old words, here and there, that everything was revealed to me. For instance, when he saw my airplane for the first time, I should not draw my airplane, that would be far too complicated for me. He asked me, what is this object? It's not an object, it flies. It is an airplane. It is my airplane. And I was proud to be able to tell him that I could fly. He cried out then, what? You dropped down from the sky? Yes, I replied modestly. Oh, that's funny. And the little prince broke into a lovely peal of laughter, which annoyed me no end. I like my misfortune. So you come from another planet? But he did not reply. He nodded gently and was gazing at my airplane. It is true that you can't have come from very far away. And he sunk into a large reverie. Then taking my sheep out of his pocket, he contemplated his treasure. You can imagine how my curiosity was aroused by this half of confidence about the other planet. So I've tried to find out a little bit more. Where do you come from, my little fellow? Where is this where I live of which you speak? Where do you want to take my sheep? After a thoughtful silence, he replied, what I like about the box you have given me is that he can use it as his house at night. Of course, and if you're good, I shall also give you a rope to tie him up during the day, and a pole to tie him to. But the little prince seemed shocked by my proposal. Tie him up? What a funny idea. But if you do not tie him up, he'll wander off and get lost. My friend burst out laughing again. But where would he go? Anywhere? Just straight ahead? Whereupon the little prince remarked gravely, it wouldn't matter. Everything is so small where I live. And perhaps a little wistfully, he added, straight ahead of oneself, one cannot go very far. Chapter 4. Thus I have learned a second very important thing, that his planet of origin was scarcely larger than a house. But that did not really surprise me very much. I know full well that apart from the large planets, such as Earth, Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, which have been given names, there are hundreds of others which have sometimes so small that it is difficult to see them through a telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of them, he does not give it a name but a number. He might call it, for example, astronaut 325. I have serious reason to believe that the little prince's planet of origin was astronaut known as B612. The astronaut have only been observed only once through a telescope by a Turkish astronomer in 1909. At the time, he organized a great demonstration of his discovery at the International Astronomical Congress, but because of his Turkish attire, nobody believed him. Grown-ups are like that. Fortunately for the reputation of astronaut B612. However, a Turkish dictator imposed European customers upon his subject under the pain of death. So the astronomer repeated his demonstration in 1920, dressed in an elegant suit, and at this time, everyone was convinced. If I have told you that these details about astronaut 612 and revealed its number to you, it is on account of grown-ups. Grown-up loves figures. When you talk to them about a new friend, they never ask questions about essential matters. They never say to you, what does his voice sound like? What game does he prefer? Does he collect butterflies? They ask you, how old is he? How many brothers does he have? How much does he weigh? How much money does his father earn? It is only then they feel like they know him. If you were to mention to grown-ups, I've seen a beautiful house built with pink bricks, with geranium on the windowsill and doves on the roof, they will not be able to imagine such a house. You have to say to them, I saw a house worth £100,000. Then they will exclaim, oh, how lovely. Thus, if you said to them, The proof that the little prince really existed was that he was enchanting, that he's loved, and that he wanted a sheep. Now when you want a sheep, it proved that you exist. They will shrug their shoulders and will treat you as if you were a child. But if you say to them, the planet he come from was astronaut Big 601, then they will be convinced and leave you alone with their questions. That is the way they are. One must not hold it against them. Children should show great understanding to adults, or other words, grown up. But of course, for those of us who understand life, we could not care less about figures. I should have liked to start this story like a fairy tale. I should have liked to say, once upon a time, there was a little prince who lived on a planet scarcely larger than himself, and who had need of a friend. For those who understand what life is all about, it would have seemed closer to the truth. For I do not want my book to be ready carelessly. I have experienced so much grief in setting up those memories. 6 years have already elapsed since my little friend left me. Where's his sheep? If I am attempting to describe him, it is in order not to forget him. It is sad to forget a friend. Not everyone has had a friend, and I could become like grown-up who are only concerned about figures. That is why I have bought a box of paints and pencils. It is hard to take up drawing again at my age. Having never made any attempt other than drawing a bowl from the outside and a bowl from the inside at the age of 6. I shall certainly endeavor to make my portrait as true to life as possible, but I am not at all sure of succeeding. One drawing is all right. Another shows no resemblance at all to its subject. The height is not right either. Here, the little prince is too tall. There, he's too small again. And I'm not sure about the color of his suit. So I proceed by trial and error and to the best of my ability. I shall also make mistakes about more important details, but I must be forgiven for that. My friend never explained anything to me. Perhaps he thought I was like him. But unfortunately, I cannot see sheep through boxes. Perhaps I'm a little like grown-ups. I'm getting old. Chapter 5. Each day I learned something about the planet, about the little prince's departure from it, about his journey. The information would come very slowly, following the course of a little prince's thought. Thus, it was that on the 3rd day, I heard about the astronaut of a baobab. Once again, it was sent to the sheep. For suddenly, the little prince questioned me as if it seized by grave doubt. It is true, is it not, that sheep eat little shrubs? Yes, that is true. I'm glad. I did not understand why the fact of the sheep eating shrubs was so important, but the little prince added, therefore, they also eat baobab? I pointed out to the little prince that baobab are not little bushes, but trees as tall as churches, and that even if he were to take a whole herd of elephants with him, the herd would not be able to eat up one single baobab. The little prince laughed at the idea of a herd of elephants. One would have to pile them up on top of one another, but he remarked wisely, before they grew to such a size, baobab start out by being small. That is true, but why do you want your sheep to eat the little baobab? He answered me, oh, come, as if this was self-evident. I have to exert considerable mental effort to work the problem out for myself. It seemed that on the little prince planet, as on all planets, there was good plants and bad plants. Good seed come from good plant, and bad seed come from bad plants. But seeds are irreversible. They remain dormant in the depths of the earth until one of them suddenly decided to wake up. It stretches itself, timidly at first, and then began to push charming little sprig inoffensively toward the sun. If it is merely a sprout of a radish or a sprig of rose bush, it can be left to grow as it wishes. But if it is a weed, it should be torn out at once, as soon as it is recognized. It so happened that there was some terrible seed on the little princess planet. They were baobab seed. The soil of the planet was infested with them, but if you intervene too late, you will never get rid of the baobab. It spread over the entire planet. Its root bore clear through it. And if the planet is too small, and if there are too much neem baobab, the planet explodes. It is a question of discipline, said the little prince to me later on. When you have finished your toilet in the morning, it is time to attend the planet's toilet with great care. One must push out the baobab very regularly as soon as they can be distinguished from the rose bush. They resemble so closely when they are very young. It's very tedious work, but also very easy. And one day he advised me to try and make a beautiful drawing, so as to impress all of this upon the children at where I live. He said to me, if they travel one day, it might be of use to them. It may be convenient sometimes to put off one's work until another day, but in this case of baobab, it is always catastrophic to do so. I knew of a planet inhabited by a lazy man. He had neglected 3 little bushes. So, basing my work upon this description of the little prince, I made the drawing you have just seen. I don't like to sound like a moralist, but the danger of baobab is so little known, and the risks are so considerable to whomever might get lost on an astronaut that, for once, I make an exception to my reserve. I said, children, beware of baobab. It is in order to warn my friend of a danger which they, like me, have been unaware for so long, that I have worked so hard over this drawing. My lesson was worth it. You may ask yourself, why are there no other drawings in this book as impressive as the drawing of baobab? The answer is quite simple. I've tried, but with all those others have not had the slightest success. When I drew the baobab, I was driven by the feeling of urgency. Chapter 6. Now, little prince, bit by bit I came to understand your sad little life. For a long time, your only entertainment had been the pleasure of watching sunset. I learned a new detail on the morning of the 4th day. But he said to me, I'm very fond of sunset. Let us go and watch the sunset. But we must wait. Wait for what? Wait for the sun to set. You looked very surprised at first, and then you laughed to yourself and said to me, I keep on thinking that I'm at home. Yes, indeed. When it's midday in the United States, the sun, as everybody knows, is setting in France. One would just have to travel in a minute to France to be able to watch the sun setting there. Unfortunately, France is too far away from that. But on your tiny little planet, all you needed to do was to move your chair a few steps, and you could watch the twilight falling whenever you feel like it. One day, I watched the sun setting 44 times, you told me, and a little later, you added, you know, when one is so terribly sad, one loves sunset. The day that you watched those 44 sunsets, were you that sad? I asked. But the little prince made no reply. Chapter 7. On the 5th day, and once again thanks to the sheep, the secret of the little prince's life was revealed to me. Without any preamble, as it were, the result of a silently throughout problem. He asked me abruptly, "A sheep, if it eats bushes, does it eat flowers too?" A sheep eats anything it comes across. Even flowers' thorns? Yes, even flowers' thorns. And the thorns? What use are they? I did not know. I was very busy trying to unscrew a bolt which had got stuck in my engine. I was deeply worried as the breakdown of my plane was beginning to look extremely serious to me. My drinking water was running out fast, and I could only fear the worst. The storms! What use are they? The little prince never let go of a question once he had raised it. I was annoyed by my boat, and the answer was the first thing that came to my mind. Thorns are quite useless. Flowers have them just out of sheer spit. Oh! But after a moment of silence, he said with a kind of resentfulness, "I don't believe you. Flowers are weak. They are naive. They reassure themselves as best they can. They believe that their thorns are terrible." I did not answer. At that instant, I was saying to myself, if the boat continued to resist me, I should knock it off with a hammer. Once again, the little prince intruded upon my thought. "Do you actually believe that flowers—" No, I don't believe anything. I just answered any old how. I'm busy with serious matters. He stared at me in total astonishment. Serious matters? He could see me with a hammer in my hand and my finger black with engine grease, bending down over an object which seemed to him extremely ugly. He talked just like grown-ups. This made me feel a little ashamed of myself. Relentlessly, he added, "You're confusing everything, mixing everything up." He was quite angry. He shook his golden lock in the wind. "I know of a planet where there was a red-faced gentleman. He has never smelled a flower. He had never looked at a star. He had never loved anyone. He has spent all his time adding up figures and figures and figures. And all day, he keep on repeating, like you. Oh, I'm busy with serious matters. I'm busy with serious matters. Over and over and again. And he swelled up like a plant. But he's not a human. He's not a man. He's a mushroom." "A what?" "A mushroom." The little prince was now pale with anger. For millions of years, flowers had been growing thorns. And for millions of years, sheep had still been eating flowers. And is it not worth trying to understand why they go to such lengths to grow thorns, which are no use to them? Is the war between sheep and flowers not important? Not more serious and more important than the sum of a red-faced gentleman? And if I know of a flower which is unique in the world and grow nowhere other than on my planet, and that of a small sheep can destroy it with a single bite, just like that, one morning without realizing what it is doing, is that not important?" He blushed and continued, "If someone loves a flower of which there is only one on a million, and millions of stars, it is enough to make him happy when he looks at them, for he can say to himself, 'My flower is somewhere out there.' But if the sheep eats the flower, it is for him as if, all of a sudden, all the stars went dark. And you think that is not important?" He could say no more because he was overcome with tears. Night had fallen. I have dropped my tools. I couldn't have cared less about my hammer, my boat, thirst, or death. There was on a star, a planet, mine, the earth, a little prince to be confronted. I took him in my arm and rocked him gently. I said to him, "The flower you love is in no danger. I shall draw you a muzzle for your sheep. I shall draw you a fence for your flower." I did not really know what to say to him. I felt very awkward. I did not know how to reach him, how to catch up with him. The land of tears is so mysterious. Chapter 8. I soon learned how to know that flower better. There have always been very simple flowers on the Little Prince's planet, with a single ring of petal, occupying very little space and no trouble to anyone. They will appear one morning in the grass and fade away in the evening. But one day, from a seed bloom from no one knows where, a new flower had come up, and the Little Prince had watched it very closely over the small shot, which was not at all like any of the other shot on his planet. It could not have been a new kind of baobab. But the plant soon stopped growing and started to develop a flower. The Little Prince, watching the growth of an enormous bud, sensed that this could well lead to a miraculous apparition, but the flower continued her preparation for her beauty in the shelter of a green chamber. She chooses her color with great care. She dressed slowly, carefully, arranging her petals one by one. She did not wish to appear all crumbled, like a puppy. She only wished to appear in full glory of her beauty. Oh yes, she was very vain. Her mysterious preparation had lasted for days and days. And then one morning, when the sun was rising, she suddenly showed herself. I'm going to fetch it, but you were talking to me? Whereupon she coughed a little more. And having worked so hard and taking such care, she yawned and said, I'm only half awake. Forgive me. I'm still quite disheveled. But the Little Prince could not restrain her admiration and exclaimed, "Oh, how beautiful you are!" "Am I not?" The flower replied gently, "And I was born at the same time as the sun." The Little Prince had to admit that she was not exclusively modest, but she was enchanting. "I believe it is time for breakfast," she added a moment later. "Would you be kind enough to attend to my needs?" And the Little Prince, totally abashed, at once fetched a can of fresh water and sprinkled the flower. Thus it was that she began for the outset to torment him with her demanding vanity. One day, for example, referring to her fourth throne, she said to the Little Prince, "Let them come, those tigers with their claws." "But there are no tigers on my planet," objected the Little Prince. "And anyways, tigers don't eat weeds." "But I am not a weed," the flower replied sweetly. "Please forgive me. I'm not afraid of the tigers, but I hate drought. You couldn't have a screen for me by any chance?" "A horror of drought? That's really bad luck for a planet," remarked the Little Prince, thinking to himself, "This flower is indeed a very complex creature. In the evening, I want you to put me under a glass dome. It's very cold here where you live, and rather uncomfortable. Now, where I come from..." Too late, she interrupted herself. She had arrived as a seed. She could not have known anything about the other world. Embarrassed at having been discovered preparing such a naive lie, she coughed a couple of times so as to confuse the Little Prince. Where's the screen?" I was going to fetch it, but you were talking to me. Whereupon she coughed a little as that he could feel remorse. So the little prince, in spite of the goodwill his love engendered toward her, come gradually to doubt her. He had taken words of no importance seriously and become very unhappy. I shouldn't have listened to her, he confided to me one day. One should never listen to flowers. One must admire them, breathe their fragrance, mine perfume on my planet, but I did not know how to enjoy her. The tale of claws which irritated me so much that it simply had touched my heart. And he confided further. At the time, I was unable to understand anything. I should have based my judgment upon deed and not words. She casted her fragrance and her radiance over me. I should never have run away from her. I should have guessed at the affection behind her poor little tricks. Flowers are so inconsistent, and I was too young to know how to love her. Chapter 9. I suspect that for his escape, he took advantage of the migration of the wild bird. On the morning of his departure, he put his planning in a perfect order. He carefully swept his active volcanoes. He possessed 2 active volcanoes, and they were very convenient for the heating his breakfast in the morning. He also had a volcano which was extinct. But as he pointed out, you never know. So he also cleaned out the extinct volcano. If they are properly swept, volcanoes burn gently and regularly without any eruption. Volcanic eruptions are like chimney fires. On Earth, of course, we are far too small to sweep over volcanoes. That is why they cause us so many troubles. The little prince tore up, not without a sense of sorrow, the last little bulbous shoot. He believed that he would never have to return, but all these familiar activities seemed very precious to him on the last morning. And when he watered the flower for the last time and prepared to place her under her glass dome, he felt like crying. Goodbye, he said to the flower, but she did not answer him. Goodbye, he said again. The flower coughed, but it was not because she had a cold. I've been silly, she whispered at last. Please forgive me. Try to be happy. He was surprised by the absence of reproach. He just stood there, quite bewildered. With the dome poised in the mid-air, he did not understand this quiet sweetness. Of course, I love you, the flower said to him. If you were not aware of it, it was my fault. That is not important. But you have just been just as foolish. Try to be happy. Leave that dome alone. I don't want it anymore. But the wind? My cold is not that bad. The cool night air will do me good. I'm a flower. I sure have to put up with a few caterpillars if I want to see butterflies. I understand they're very beautiful. Otherwise, who will ever call upon me? You will be far away. As to large animals, I am not afraid of them. I like claws. And as naive as ever, she showed her false throne. Then she added, Don't hang about it. It's irritating. You have decided to leave. So leave. For she did not want him to see her crying. She was a very proud flower. that'll be all for today. So we have finished chapter 1 to chapter 9 of The Little Prince. We will continue next time from chapter 10. I hope you guys all enjoyed the stream so far, and hoping some of you guys already fall asleep as well. If you guys haven't, hopefully you can listen to the background music and fall asleep that way. And guys, so thank you guys so much for the support and love. We'll continue with more streams for tomorrow. Have a good night. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night, guys. Sleep well, sleep well. Mwah.